Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to another video, another batch of GMs, another batch of builds. So for this week's GM, it is going to be Fallen Saber, probably the easiest GM out of the entire season, just past Disgraced. There are a couple of hurdles in the GM, but nothing too major. This is the builds for Warlocks I recommend to use. There isn't actually a lot. I'm only going to put out 2 builds across each class because, trust me, you don't even going to need to use most of the builds that you think about using for this, for fast, efficient runs. So first builds first, build basically with a wish and a bow and a trace rifle, or a scout rifle, whatever you would say. I would say just use Path of Least Resistance, just easier. That's just my call in weaponry. But obviously Vesper Radiance, when you put down your Arc Rift with an Arc subclass, it releases both a shockwave and both a blinding aspect. For the mods you want to be using Ashes to Assets, Kinetic Siphon, Heavy Ammo Finder, Bolstering, Fastball, Firepower, triple different resistors. You want to be having Insulation, a Surge, and an Innovation mod. You don't really need much else. Powerful Attraction and a Double Bomber to clean this build up. Stats you want to be focusing into, obviously Resilience. Next is Recovery and Discipline, because they are the primary build of the aspects of it. Mods you want to be using for the artifact: Shock and All, Lightning Strikes Twice, Electric Armor, Thunderous Retort, Amped Up, and Countercharge. For the Stormcaller, you want to be rocking Electrostatic Mine, Arc Soul, Spark of Shock, Spark of Magnitude, Spark of Volt, Spark of Ions. I like to use Healing Rift, Burst Glide, Ball Lightning, making sure you are using Pulsinade. You can change that for Stormnade or another grenade, whatever you feel like, but preferably I would say Pulsinade is the best one. Making sure to use Chaos Reach. If you're not using Chaos Reach, then you are wasting your time. Chaos Reach is the best super for GMs in the Arc department, for Warlock obviously. Storm Trance is good, but it's not really good, and plus, between the delay and the base cooldown times, it's much easier to use Chaos Reach. Next build is still on Arc. We're just going to be going over to the classic build. I don't think I have it on. Oh, no, right here. So this one here is a swap between Fallen Sunstar, and I don't have it on me right now, but it is the Crown of Tempest. So either way, the stats should be basically the same. There's no change in the stats. But here are the weapons. Here's what you want to be using. You want to be having Ashes to Assets, a Weapon Siphon depending on your element. I would say just use Kinetic with a Wish Ender. That's just all you really need. Heavy Ammo Finder, making sure you got Fastball, Bolstering, and Firepower. Triple Resist, Insulation, Weapon Mod, whatever you want to use. Me, I've got Void. I believe I use Monarch with this build. I go a bit of a different route. Innovation, and that's going to be Powerful Attraction. Don't worry about distribution, that's Powerful Attraction, as well as a Double Bomber mod. And all the aspects from my previous one are the same here with Stormcaller, so no change. Electrostatic Mine, Arc Soul, all these never actually do change. I always keep them the same, and so with these abilities right here. So what I had on the first build is exactly the same as what I'll have here, as well as the mods for the seasonal aspect of it. Alright, we'll move on to the Hunter build. The reason why there isn't a lot to run for this week's Nightfall is because, similar to Disgrace, Arc will just nuke through everything, and if you have a right build up like what I do with Resilience, Recovery, and Discipline, you will have unlimited energy across all your abilities besides from your melee. And making sure to use, again, making sure if you're not using it already, Chaos Reach. If you're not using Chaos Reach, you are being stupid. Chaos Reach is what you want to be using for the build. Alrighty, for Titan, there's only 2 builds again that you want to be using. If you're not using these 2 builds, then I don't know what you're doing. But first build is, oh, I don't have the piece equipped, give me a moment. But it is Heart of Immortal Light. I don't know why that's not saved. Save. But yes, Heart of Immortal Light build. And the next build is exactly the same, but it's just Cures of the Falling Star. So it's just changed his chest piece over to Cures of the Falling Star. I'll quickly show you. That's the piece that I'm on about. You want to have the same stat rolls and the same stats to utilize across the build. So I focus primarily on resilience, discipline, and strength. I don't really care about intellect. There are heaps of ways to get your intellect back faster. Otherwise, this is what I use. I use heavy ammo finder, ashes assets, harmonic siphon, because I'm always using something like a forbearance in this type of GM. Heavy-handed, bolstering detonation. You can change that to a heavy ammo. You can change that to anything you want. I'd say just use a loader, or you could use something like firepower mod. Just remember, I use triple resist here. Sometimes I do use a harmonic siphon or a harmonic reserve, so I have increased ammo capacity, because I normally use an arc rocket for this GM. And then innovation, a scav, so obviously this is basically so I do more damage, and then I have a scavenger mod here. Then I use bomber, and I actually use double distribution on purpose due to the fact that I'm always in point blank range, and I'm using thruster, which you'll see in a moment. So I just use touch of thunder, knockout, pulse grenade, seismic strike, catapult lift, thrusters, spark of magnitude, spark of shock, spark of resistance, and spark of ions. And then with this, you want to have the exact same as before: shock and awe, lightning strikes twice, electric armor, thunderous retort, amped up, and countercharge. That's all for the Titan. I'm going to go over to the Hunter now. The Hunter, you can kind of go in multiple paths, but the more effective path is probably a strand and a arc. Last but not least, the Hunter. The Hunter is probably the easiest one out of a lot of these builds. So I've shown you the Lucky Pants hand cannon based build. This is actually a bit different. So with arc and strand, you can go like a couple of routes. You can use a 1-2 punch build with an arc. You can use a 1-2 punch arc build like what I've got here, which is hands-on, harmonic siphon, heavy ammo for mods. I also use pretty much a heavy-handed firepower. This is just varying what you want to use. I would say something like a bolstering detonation, or something that would get your grenade back faster, due to this being a punchy punch build. Otherwise, I use triple resist here. These are all different setups because I utilize them differently compared to most people. Otherwise, absolution, scavenger mod, and innovation. Then this, don't worry about this one. This is just how I utilize it. But I would say use something like the powerful attraction mod and double bomber right here, because you are constantly dodging, so you will get your grenade back faster. Otherwise, in the mods, like all the arc ones, shock and awe, lightning strike twice, electric armor, thunderous retort, amped up, and countercharge. And then obviously on my arc, I have flow state and lethal current. Yep, got it correctly. I was doing a bit of changing, so these could have been changed. Otherwise, pulse nade, combination blow, triple jump, and gambler's dodge, making sure that is a key factor, having gambler's dodge. Spark of ions, spark of resistance, spark of feedback, spark of shock, and you want to be using gathering storm. I didn't say this on the Titan, but you want to be using Thunder Crash. If you are using Fist of Havoc, dear God, you're an idiot. You want to be using Thunder Crash at all times. Just like Arc, you want to be using Gathering Storm at all times. Realistically, across all the Arc subclasses, there are only two viable. There is only one viable subclass or one ability to use as your super. For strand, this is where I was going back to the hand cannon base thing. Star Rater builds. So this week, a Star Rater build will dominate the playing field if you can stay alive. So what I'd recommend for a Star Rater build is just having a scavenger here and triple reserves, or double reserves, sorry, and a scavenger right here, as well as heavy ammo finder, a font of wisdom to get your super back, and a siphon mod. Right here, I use double heavy-handed. You can change that for like a firepower, a reload, and a bolstering detonation, and then a triple resistance, as well as time dilation, bomber, and another bomber here. Distribution is just because most of the time I'm still in close when I'm doing a dodge, but you can change it to a powerful attraction as well. You want dilation because you are using a fair few of these mods here. You want to be able to last them longer, so dilation does hold back and delays the armor decaying. Obviously, there is no change within my subclass. There is no change here. This is all the same. Obviously, this is a bit different because I was utilizing the hand cannon, but this would always be a pulse grenade, and this will not be here. This would be whatever was in the previous punchy punch build, as well as these aspects. So don't worry about that. Just use the aspects from the previous build into this build here. And then obviously there's no change across these right here, the repulsion regulator. If you use strand with this build, it goes a bit different obviously. So I'll show you what I use for strand. I do change up my strategy a little bit as well. So I would actually cut off the mobility to give it into more resilience. Obviously, I'd actually take away one of these mods, so I'd actually only use one surge mod, one scavenger, so I have higher stat roll here in my Star Eaters. Normally that would go into something else, obviously, but pretty much all the mods in that are the same. There is no real change to them. It's all about the same. And then with the subclass Thread Runner, I'm obviously using Maskman Dodge, Triple Jump, Thread Spike, and then this would actually be on Shackle Nade, as well as Widow Silk, Ensnaring Slam, Thread Continuity, Thread of Binding, Thread of Generation, and Thread of Warning. And then on the aspects for the artifact, you want to be having Cosmic Needle, Strand Soldier, and you want to be doing Improved Unraveling, and making sure to keep counter charge. That is very, very useful. So that's what I recommend for this week on the Hunter. All three builds are quite basic and easy to make, and they can pretty much just nuke out anything in this GM. Otherwise, this is probably the easiest GM there is. You shouldn't have much trouble using it, but these builds should increase the speed of all runs. Do watch out, there are a lot of idiots when it comes to this GM, so I personally recommend just doing it legit. The cheese isn't really worth it because most people fuck up the cheese, and I don't believe it's worth wasting 5 minutes fighting everything again because somebody couldn't do the cheese correctly. Otherwise, I'm not going to really be streaming this week on this GM itself. I'll be back on Remnant. I'm also about to put out a video on that if you guys want to check it out. It's how to get unlimited Tome of Knowledge and some other things for the game. So if you want to check out that, go across and check it out. Otherwise, see you in the next one.